Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kaylee, and welcome back to another day of Vlogoween. Today's video is going to be a little different than some of my other videos because it's mainly just going to be me kind of talking to you guys instead of me showing you guys things. So today I'm going to be talking about my experience working at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa and for the Walt Disney Company as a whole, kind of, but mainly focusing on working specifically at Saratoga Springs. So if you are new to my channel, or if you just haven't seen videos where I kind of talked about it, I worked at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa in Walt Disney World between January 2020 and March of 2020. I was supposed to work there until May, but unfortunately the parks closed due to the pandemic, and I was doing the Disney College program. It's unfortunate that my program was cut short, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I met amazing people, I had amazing leaders, I had the best placement I could have possibly imagined. So don't regret it in the slightest, just kind of wish it didn't happen during a pandemic so I could have done the full 4 months instead of 2. But no worries, I'll get back there eventually one day when this is all over, and or at least more under control than it currently is. So as I mentioned, I worked at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa, so I did not work in a park. You can be placed at any of the resorts or at the ESPN Worlds of Sports or something like that along those lines, or Disney Springs. You can be placed pretty much anywhere on Disney property. And I was placed at a resort, and part of me was a little disappointed that I wasn't placed at a park. I feel like most of the time you go into these programs and such and you want to work at one of the parks. You want to be where the magic is. But magic is everywhere. It's all over the Walt Disney property, so it really doesn't matter if you're not in a park. And honestly, I think there were more perks to working in a resort than there were to work in a park, which I will discuss some of those coming up. Anyways, like I said, I had the best placement I could have possibly asked for. My leaders were amazing, my coordinators were amazing. I felt like I could talk to any of them about anything. My fellow cast members that I worked with were awesome. It was just a really great time. So I specifically worked in merchandise, so that was my role. So the merchandise cast members are the cast members that work in the stores, work with the merchandise. They also can work with stroller and wheelchair rental, and stuff like that. So almost anything that has to deal with money, pretty much, is going to be a merchandise cast member, for the most part. I'm sure there are some roles that still deal with money that aren't merchandise, but for the most part it's merchandise cast members. So I worked at the store, the Artist Palette, which is the gift shop at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa. So working at the Artist Palette was slightly different than working at any of the like average stores that not average, Disney is not average, but like, you know what I mean, any of the other like gift shops at any of the other resorts. Because not only was it the gift shop, but it was also the quick service location at this resort. So I had to also be, I wasn't fully cross-trained. Like I couldn't just go into the kitchen, like pick up a shift working in the kitchen or anything like that. But I had to be cross-trained in the sense that I had to be food safety trained. And I had to have some training on the dining plan for Disney. So that was pretty cool. Can carry those over if I get a job in food service, I guess, working for Disney. And it was also nice because for merchandise there were 2 leaders, but for the quick service I think there were either 4 or 5. But we could pretty much go, like if I couldn't find one of my leaders or they were out that day or something, they were busy doing something, I could go to any of the food service leaders. So that was really awesome to have those extra people there to help you. But yeah, so I had to be trained in those. Then I also had to be trained in selling alcohol and tobacco products because the resort sold those. So stuff like that. I had to learn about like the different ways of payment because we do accept some overseas like Visa cards and stuff like that. So you kind of had to learn about that. I think the like learning about the payment stuff was more aimed towards those cast members that were coming from other countries that didn't necessarily deal with the US dollar a lot, and so learning how to deal with the US, the currency. But pretty much that stuff was kind of easy, at least for me. For someone who maybe has never like dealt with US currency, it probably was a little more challenging to learn, but yeah. So I'm going to go into kind of like the type of shifts that you could working at Saratoga Springs in the merchandise role. So there was the opening shift, which was a register shift. You would work on the register, but also you were in charge of opening up the store. So you would set it up, you would make sure everything was stocked properly, you would make sure you took in the newspapers and stuff for the day, anything along those lines, making sure things are properly stocked, anything like that. And then you just kind of work on the register for the rest of your shift. I only did that shift once for my training, and then I never really worked that shift again. I don't, like, if you've never heard anything about the Disney College program, then this will be new to you, but if you've been, like, applying to the Disney College program, or if you've done a program yourself or anything like that, you'll probably have heard this, but the DCP doesn't only stand for Disney College Program, it also stands for Designated Closing Person. So you'll usually get a lot of closing shifts. So I only did the opening shift as a training for if I ever got an opening shift, which I never did. The next type of shift that you could get was, I want to say it was called Heart of House, something like that, HOH. And basically you stocked the stock room. So it was a very early shift. You had to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning, very, very early. Luckily, you got out super early, so you got out like 12 or something like that. But you went in early, and all of the shipment that came in of different merchandise, you had to unbox it all, bring it upstairs to the stock room. If it was clothing, you had to put like the tags on the clothing, like the electronic things that will beep or whatever, the ink things. You had to put those on the clothing, make sure they were on the correct hangers, and kind of put them in their place within the stockroom. Basically, that was the thing. You had to refill the freezer and stuff like that with like milk and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of that. The next type of shift was just a regular register shift, which could be anytime throughout the day, but later than an opening shift start time and earlier than a closing shift timeline, but you could just work on the register. Another shift was floor stock, which means basically you would just kind of walk around the floor. When people bought stuff, you would have to go back and restock it and make sure there was a certain number of, for clothing, make sure there were a certain number of smalls and extra smalls and larges and mediums and all that stuff. Make sure all the food was stocked. Just that kind of stuff, restocking. Which pretty much was my favorite shift, if we're gonna be honest, because I just felt like it was easy. It was just kind of slow going. It was a nice time. The only time that I didn't really like the shift was if we weren't really busy at all and there was nothing really to do, because then you just kind of stood there and did nothing, and it was kind of boring. But other than that, I really liked that shift. Another type of shift was the closing shift. So again, you would work on the register, but you also would stay for closing. So the store closes at 11, and that your closing shift would end at 11:45, so you had 45 minutes to do your closing thing. So basically you'd have to shut down the register and like lock it down the money and all that stuff. And then you would have to, you would be assigned, for my location specifically, you would be assigned one of 3 different closing jobs. One of them was to restock the freezer, which was always my go-to because I just thought it was simple. I thought it was really easy. A lot of people didn't like the freezer shift, or job, I mean, because it's obviously cold. But I actually thought the cold was nice because at the end of a long shift where you're standing the whole time, my feet would hurt. So going into the freezer was nice because it would kind of freeze my feet and they wouldn't hurt so much. And then there was one, like, you restocked the shopping bags and the receipt paper and stuff like that. You had to restock. And then there was another one that you did stuff with, like the newspapers and stuff. They were just like basic closing routine stuff. And then the last type of shift that you could get was called the PPU and grocery shift. So you would come in. This one was kind of like an oddly timed shift. It was from like 10:30, I think, till 6. And you would come in the morning. Anything that was dropped off from the parks, so like PPU stands for package pickup. So you could buy items in the parks and have them shipped to your resort. So any of that stuff would come in. This cast member, whoever had the shift, would kind of unpackage all of those, bring them up to the stock room. You would scan them in and everything and have the labeled everything into the computer system, showing that the items were there, and then guests could come and pick up their packages. After that, you could get grocery orders. So if you're staying at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa, you have the option to place in a grocery order. And we have a bunch of different grocery items in the Artist Palette store that you can purchase. And so basically you would send in what you wanted to buy. The cast member would then go and gather all of the items. They would charge it to your room, and then they would deliver it to your room. If you're not there, they will have a key that they can get in, and they will put all of your groceries away for you. So anything that needs to be refrigerated, they'll put in the refrigerator and stuff like that. They'll just put all your groceries away, which is super awesome. So yeah, those are basically the type of shifts that you can get. So you do need a license. So you kind of need a license, you kind of don't. You don't necessarily need a license to work at the store, but if you get a grocery shift, you'll need a license because you have to drive a company vehicle to deliver groceries if you have any grocery orders. So there's that. But it's a really simple job. It was really nice. The cast members that you worked with were all really nice. The full-timers, the part-timers, they were great. We were always joking around and having a great time. I loved making magical moments for guests. They were so awesome. You could just have like full, long, like hour-long conversations with some guests, and they'll tell you like their whole life story. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot working there, and I talked to a lot of people from all around the world, and it was a great time. I really truly did enjoy it. So let's get into some of the perks of working at a resort, specifically at Saratoga Springs, but not all are specific to Saratoga Springs, but perks to working in a resort rather than a park. One of the main ones is that even if you're working a night shift, it's not going to be super late. You're not working into the morning. Like I said, the store closes at 11. You're out by 11:45, which is late, but working the parks, you'll work later, believe me. So I'd usually get back to my apartment between 12 and 12:30, depending on if I could catch a ride with someone who lived in my complex, or if I had to take the bus. However, like one of my roommates worked at the Emporium in the Magic Kingdom, and she would have shifts that would go till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and she wouldn't get back to her apartment until like 3 o'clock in the morning, which is crazy. So that was really nice. You had a set time that you were definitely getting out, and it wasn't super late. Another really nice thing about working in a resort is that you build more connections with the guests because you're seeing them more on a regular basis, and you're not seeing nearly as many. Usually, a lot of people will go to the parks. They'll go one day during their entire vacation. However, if they're staying at that resort, they're going to be coming in multiple times, especially working at the Artist Palette with that merchandise location also being the quick service location, they're coming in a lot. So you really get to know the guests that you're working with and serving, because you see them more and you have longer conversations and stuff. And also, along with that, they're more relaxed at the resort, because they're not like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta get this fast pass, we gotta go eat here, we gotta go do this line, we gotta get to this parade. There's none of that, so they're more relaxed and they'll have longer conversations with you. So that was really nice. That was a nice perk of working in a resort rather than working in a park. Also, I know one of my roommates who worked in the Magic Kingdom, after a while she was there so often that she didn't really want to go to the Magic Kingdom on her days off. Like, it was kind of tainted almost for her. She did eventually, like, lose that feeling, like she did want to go to Magic Kingdom after a while, but at first it kind of was just like, that's where I work every day, like I have to go there every day, I don't want to go there when I don't have to, type of thing. Working at a resort, you don't get that. Because most people don't go to the resorts on their days off anyways. I did go resort hopping, but like, it was different. You never got tired of the parks. Like, I never didn't want to go to a specific park because I was there all the time with work, you know what I mean? So that was a really nice perk of working at a resort compared to working inside one of the Disney parks. The only disadvantage that I can really think of is that, like, I know my roommates, some of my roommates and some of the people that I talk to could go out of their store or whatever and see the fireworks going at the castle during Happily Ever After and stuff like that, or whatever it is at their respective park that they work at. And there was nothing really like that at the resorts, obviously. But I mean, in all honesty, that's not really a huge deal. I think the benefits kind of outweigh the disadvantages of working in a resort. So, like I said, I think it was the best possible placement that I could have asked for. I really miss my Saratoga family and my home away from home. One of the, like, main things that we have at Saratoga Springs is welcome home, and that just really rings true for me. That is my second home, and when I go back, it will be like coming home. Anyways, if you guys have any questions about working at Saratoga Springs or Disney in general, make sure to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys have for me, or I can try to figure them out for you. If you worked at Saratoga Springs before, let me know what your experience was like. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you not really like it? Do you think there were more perks to working in the park than I said, or more disadvantage to working in the resorts? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow for another video for Vlogoween. Bye, guys.